So I have a Wordfast TXT translation memory from Welsh to English US. If I open that up in a text editor, what you can see is the same thing as we've seen before, that it's just plain text and separated, lots of columns separated by tab symbols. So it contains all the usual information, plus there's a lot of fields that look as though they're only relevant to Wordfast. So I'm going to show you a couple of ways to handle this and talk about the difference between them. The very first thing I'll do, seeing as we've looked at the Glossary Converter before, is I'm going to just show you how you could use the Glossary Converter for this. So I'm going to first of all just open up the file in Excel. And if I take the TXT file, it's a delimited. I know it's going to bring everything as I want it, so I'm just going to say OK. And then if I just expand these a bit so that we can see the different fields. So I have the user ID, I have something I don't know what it is, I have a language code, the language associated with that language code, then a target language code and the language, some X content, X origin, confirmation level and some other stuff. So if I wanted to use the Glossary Converter for this, the only things that are relevant to me are going to be the source and target language. All the other information is irrelevant. So if I use the Glossary Converter, if I delete all this for example, then I'm going to lose a lot of information, particularly associated with who did the translation. So if that's important to me, this method I'm about to show you is not the one for you. All I'm keeping here is source and target. And I'm just going to call this Welsh, and I'm just going to call this English, like that. And then I'm just going to say save as XLSX. I save it. So I've now saved it as an Excel file. There's my Excel file. And then all I'm going to do is start up the Glossary Converter. So that sets up. I go into my settings page, and here's where I click this, use the selected output format for any input format. I tick that, pick the TMX Translation Memory Exchange button, because I'm going to convert to a TMX, and click OK. And now if I just pick up the Excel file and drop that into here, picks up my languages, I say OK, and that's it done. So there's my TMX. So that was pretty quick, and there it is, very simple. And if I wanted to bring that into Studio just to show you how that works, I'll just start Studio up. I should have had that running in the background before I started. Okay, that's Studio. So actually I've come into my translation memories view, because I've been there before obviously, but that's where I'm going to come in. And all I'm going to do is just upgrade the translation memory. So if I just make a note of that TMX, and I just say upgrade translation memories, add file-based TM, pick the TMX, so I've just pasted that in down there, and say OK, then next. It allows me to do various things with it, but obviously all I want is the languages, so I'm going to say next. One thing in here sometimes people ask about is what to do with these different settings. Settings here, I would just leave them as default. I wouldn't worry about doing anything here at all. Maybe one thing I'd do is tick the enable character-based concordance search, particularly if it's a small TM, you get better results that way. Compatibility, you have a number of options. If you still handle bilingual doc files or TTX files, then it might make sense to check this option. Sometimes that can lead to duplicate TUs to ensure you get better leverage from these older formats, but if you never use them, just pick the top one at the front there. I'll pick this one because I still get the other ones. If there are any fields in the TM, this gives you an option to decide what to do with them. I'm not going to do anything here because it's all it's just the source and language. And then you can apply a particular language resource template to this TM while you were using it, but I'm not going to do that. So really all I've had to do was drag it in, and then I could just click finish. So that's it. Now when I say delete the temporary files, okay, I should now have an SDLTM there. And if I open that up so we can see what that looks like, here's my TM, Welsh to English. And the interesting thing that I wanted to show you here is that even though there was a user ID column that contained lots of information, if I use this method, I'm going to lose it. So everything in here is linked to me. So I created this TM using this information, and every single segment looks as though it's come from me. So if you're doing the work for yourself and you've done all the translations yourself, you might not be concerned about that. But if you were, then this method using the Glossary Converter is probably not the one for you. But it was very simple, as you've just seen. So what would you do if you weren't using that? Well, in that case, you'd have to do a slightly different route. So I'm just going to delete the TMX, and in fact I'll also delete the TM. I'll just remove that from there, so when I delete it I don't get an error. I'll delete the TM as well. I'll even delete the XLSX, and I'll just start with the TXT. And what I'm going to do is use a little program called Olifant. So Olifant, I had the link to that inside the article. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say File, Open, and I'm going to pick a Wordfast TM. There's my TM, and I say Open, and it's very fast, opens my TM up. And then all I'm going to do is save it as a TMX. And the important thing is that when I do this, Olifant will create the TMX in the correct format without losing any user information and maybe some other interesting things that were in the Wordfast TM. So I can just say File, Save As, change it to a TMX, say Save. That was pretty cool, wasn't it? It was fast. And there's my TMX, and if I look at it this time, you can see it's come from Olifant this time, and it does contain lots of other information, including the change IDs and the user IDs. So if I take this one and I do this upgrade in Studio, upgrade translation memories, add file-based TMs, and I'm just going to finish because we know all the rest is going to be the same. That's it. So it's really very quick. Delete the temporary files, and now if I open that one, here's my TM that we just created. This time, if you look down here, you can see I've got the modified. And this is important. This could be important. You can also see the dates have changed as I'm scrolling down through there. Keep your eye on this part of the screen. You can see that that information is changing. It's not consistent all the time. So if you do have a TM and it's got information in there that was created by other users, you'll be much better off to use Olifant to do the conversion to TMX if you want to keep, if you're interested in retaining all of that information. But either way, Olifant is free, and as you can see, the conversion of the translation memory to a TMX and then into a Studio translation memory is really simple and straightforward. So I hope that was helpful.